Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? What is up, and welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network, live on the Mightier 1090 ESPN radio. Thank you, as always, for making us a part of your day. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyer, joined, as always, by the gorgeous Ryan Skinny T. Anderson. My brother, what's going on? It's warm out here. How we doing?
I don't feel gorgeous. It was one of those days I got to work real early this morning, about 8 o'clock this morning, and just hit the ground running and felt good and was in the zone, in the writing zone. And
Yeah.
I'm unshaved, unshowered, feeling gross.
You look like a writer. You look like a
Yeah,
writer. I mean,
perfect.
you look like Hemingway. How many glasses of whiskey have you had already today?
Well, it's not quite 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time here yet, so I'm all hopped up on caffeine. I can tell you that.
How many cups of coffee do you usually consume a day? Like,
You know,
can you
when
have a large number, or do you have to cap out?
I cap out at 2. I have 2, like, basically back to back right away in the
Yeah,
morning. Wake up, make the coffee, and then as soon as that's down, get the next one going, and that's when I'm into my writing. And then I'll have a cup of tea somewhere a little after lunchtime.
gotcha. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I can't. I love coffee, but I cannot have more than two, or else. I
Yeah.
mean, if I eat, as long as I eat something, then I can have another one. But if I have 2 cups and then try to have a third before eating anything, I feel just like doo doo butter, like not good at all. So yeah, I cap it too, unless I get a nice big breakfast, and then I can throw a third in there. But and I'm usually starting at 6:45, 7, and so I need sometimes that third. But I'm like, this is gonna not go over well. So anyway, yeah, thank you all for hanging out. Ram Skinny here in the LAFB network. If you're on our YouTube page, Rams LAFB, thanks as always for tuning in there. If you're not, head to Rams LAFB, hit that like and subscribe button. Anywhere you get your podcast, just search Rams Skinny. And obviously the website is LAFBnetwork.com. All of our socials, LAFB Network. I am at Ryan Dyer at LAFB. He is at RL Anderson LAFB. But without further ado, let's get into some Rams talk. I'll pay the bills in the middle segment. We'll do that. So we'll just jump into it. So starting, OTAs are going on this week as they went on last week. Keep going. We got a special team coordinator, Coach Blackburn, talking to the scrum. Was it Tuesday or yesterday?
On Monday, I believe that was that went up, I believe.
Yeah, I don't even know what day it is, but this week
it could have been Tuesday, honestly.
Spoke to the media. We have an article about it, so if you follow FB Network, you already maybe read about this, but we're going to talk about it now. Really, just kind of was very candid and went into this new kickoff rule. So for those that don't know the new kickoff rule, and it's hard to just explain without having visuals, which I didn't think to really prep any. I probably should have. That would have made it easy. I could have showed people on the screen, but essentially, you have your kickoff team now is lined up closer than they previously were, and they cannot move until the receiving team or the kick returner catches or touches the ball. So there's no basically just huge running start where basically in the past, your returner, if he's not doing a touchback, once he catches the ball, he has about 10 yards before there's contact there. Now it's, they're starting they can't even start running until he starts the ball. So it allows like blocking formations to work out a little better strategies. So Coach Blackburn went into that and talked about, and I'll toss it to you because you wrote the article, but really talked about how this is a game changer in the sense of, if special teams coordinators actually can learn the best way and system to do this, it can result in early season wins. And coaches always talk about that special teams. And obviously we've seen the Rams lose games on special teams on punt returns, specifically the Baltimore game in overtime. But it's like how really on kickoff, how really strategic can teams be? And obviously, you only realize the kickoff team is around when they give up a touchdown, right? But it happens so few. Now, I mean, it's maybe not a lot of kick returns for touchdowns, but I mean, it'll be a big difference in yardage gains and stuff like that. So, but I'll let you get into kind of more candidly what he talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, you already pointed it out, but that was what, kind of caught my ear when he was talking. Usually when the special teams coordinator is talking, we maybe zone out a little bit, maybe the least important, definitely within the Rams house, been treated like the least important, as I've chronicled over the years with their struggles finding a good kicker. But yeah, he talked about several different kind of strategies that they're mulling over right now to try to find that early season edge. Because this is, if you think about it, this is probably one of the more significant rule changes that we've seen to the game in our adult life. There's been small tweaks here and there but this is something that completely changes how the field will look during a kickoff and how it's going to play out. So one of the things that was actually dropped by Kansas City Chiefs special teams coordinator is replacing the kicker with somebody that is not a kicker.
Yeah,
somebody
they
that
don't want their kicker tackling. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. You don't want your place kicker tackling because you're going to need him for a field goal late in the game, maybe. So, and then there's a discussion about one kick returner or two kick returners, and they have to cover all this ground. And these are the things that he's going through in his mind. And really, what he's kind of coming down to is they want to stick with a kicker. Because the kicker will have a high degree of accuracy to put it exactly where they want to put it. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to stick with two returners. So that's kind of the big news that you can probably count on that they're going to do. I imagine in the preseason, they're going to kind of play around and see what works and what doesn't with those two specific things. Mm-hmm. But everything in the middle, all those people that are lined up, all those players that are lined up 10 yards apart, this is where the real kind of rubber meets the road for this rule change. Because if you think about it, special teams and all defense really has always had layers. So there's always the first layer of defense, that's a defensive line. Then you got your second layer, that's linebackers and safeties and whatnot. And then you got that third layer. This has one straight line of defense.
The trenches. That's it.
Yeah,
like the trenches.
That's it. So that's going to create a bunch of explosive plays. And so they're, really what he focused on was how are you going to ensure that you create some level of defenses, basically several levels, so that your kicker isn't the one that's going to be responsible for that. And they're digging deep into the playbook and trying to figure out how to teach this stuff to these guys, because this is obviously brand new to all the players as well. And what are the best practices? And so they're looking at all sorts of different established football plays, from gap scheme stuff, outside zone stuff, all these different blocking schemes and defensive schemes. And he's had both sides of the coaching staff in his office just trying to hash all this stuff out. Go watch the interview. It's up on YouTube on the Rams YouTube page. And it's really just fascinating because he goes into a lot of details, and it's very evident that he doesn't quite know exactly how this is all going to play out, which I imagine that's true for all the buildings. But it's just kind of exciting to think that, we go back to the Chiefs. I wrote a piece a while ago about whether the Rams should bring in a rugby player. Mm-hmm. Go watch some rugby plays, and you'll start to see the kind of the similarities of how the ball is being moved. How players are being moved, and those guys have this kind of, there's no whistle in rugby, so they're playing beyond the whistle continually. And there's a kicking game. There's a kicking element in rugby as well, which could be helpful in this new scenario. I'm not saying the Rams will end up doing that, but the Chiefs did bring on a rugby player through the international portal. So really fascinating stuff to me. I'm now really excited to see, the innovation that this brings. And, the point being is all these explosive plays that might happen, this can win games. And that's they had kind of legislated out big plays in the kicking game. This is going to open it up a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love the change. I think we talked about it when it first happened, and broke that down when the rule change first happened. But love this change. It's been fun listening to him, and he could watch XFL film. I mean, to me, I'm surprised it took the NFL this long to adapt it. The XFL launched this back in their inaugural season in 2020 before the COVID shut them down, and this was one of their big rules was this kickoff, and the NFL now adopted it, but it's literally the same thing the XFL ran. So there is tape out there. If you go back to that season XFL, the LA Wildcats were the LA team here, ran it right at Dignity Health Sports Complex where the Galaxy play. I watched it live in person. I mean, it's definitely, it's safer, certainly, because you're not having those huge running
Collisions.
full speed collisions. It's a lot, you're still hitting and you're still getting tackled, but it's the, like you said, there's not all the layers. You have your literally all 10 players besides the kicker and the returner are all in one line 5 yards apart. So it's like being a normal line of scrimmage, if you will. And so it's going to really take, as you alluded to, what he was mentioning is like these different, trap, zone, gap, these different schemes. Like, is McVay going to try to run 11 personnel on kickoff? Like, what are we doing here? But there's some film out there, so I'm curious how much they'll dive into some XFL stuff to see and get creative with it. So this is where a punter like a Pat McAfee would make a killing now with this new rule, because he wasn't the field goal kicker, so there was no fear of you're losing. Obviously, you don't want to lose your punter either, but I think any coach would admit like field goal kicker is a little more important than the punter because there's actually points involved. But McAfee can hit. Remember, he had some of those big hits on kickoffs when he would kick them off. And so he would not only be an actual competent kickoff guy because he could do that, but you weren't losing a tackling player as well. So any punters out there that can tackle as well, this is now another opportunity for them to make NFL squads. We don't want these, beanstalk punters or whatnot. We need some girth on these guys that can be on the kickoff team.
Absolutely. Yeah. Girth 100%. That's
and those rugby guys, like you mentioned, the rugby guys that kick, they're not just coming on for the kick. Like they're in the scrums, and then they're also I think they all kind of, I don't know. I used to pay attention to rugby a lot more, but I think there's definitely one specific guy that's better at kicking, but I think a lot of them, you can obviously kick whenever if you drop kick it. So, anyway, so yeah, I'm super excited to see it.
Hey, if you're ever interested, there's the Los Angeles Guillotines professional rugby. We should definitely go check that out sometime.
Their name is the Guillotines?
Yeah. They wear bright pink uniforms, and the name comes after their owner, who invented a drink based on the martini or something like that. I hate the name. Love the uniforms. And I think they were in the championship game, and that's how I ended up watching them on TV. And that's where I found out about the Los Angeles Guillotines.
Look at you. Okay.
The worst. Yeah. If anybody wants obscure sports references, I'm your man.
I mean, I love it. I'm absolutely down to go to a Guillotines game if they're still around. Their website's not really loading right now, so maybe they are one of the defunct teams of Major League Rugby. But anyway, we'll look into that later. But they were for sure a real thing, the Guillotines. So recruit if they're especially they're defunct. There's a full squad of rugby players that need a home. So before we get to our next topic, show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Get a 50% welcome bonus when you join. Sign up for the first time. Put that deposit in and get 50% just for doing that. NBA playoffs start tonight. If you're listening to this on Thursday, if you're on Friday on radio, we already have the results of game one. Stanley Cup playoffs start, I believe, on Saturday.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. That's going to be fun. Edmonton, Florida. Can bet on all that. Obviously, as we've been saying all along, you can bet on futures for the NFL. Week one, you can throw on Super Bowl favorites. Rams are kind of middle of the pack there. MVP favorites. I'm putting money on Stafford to win the VP. All that can be done at betonline.ag. Tell them the guys at the LAFB Network and Rams Skinny sent you. McVay also was obviously had a presser, as he does every day in practice and OTAs, and he talked about I'll kick it over to you, but talk about the defensive line group and his ideal scenario for the blueprint of what he wants on the defensive line. What did he say, Skinny T?
Well, it can really all be boiled down to really one sentiment, which is he needs rotation this year. He mentioned that that didn't happen last year, and I kind of dug into the numbers behind that. Michael Hoyt and rookie Byron Young, so you got converted defensive lineman, edge rusher, rookie edge rusher, 6th and 7th most snaps among edge rushers played last season in the regular season. No other combination of one single team edge rushers had more. They led that together, and it wasn't by a small margin either. Minnesota, I think, was the next highest, and LA led them by over 100 snaps. So basically,
Wow.
two games worth of snaps ahead of the next. And that's just not ideal. Those guys get winded. We saw that Byron Young wasn't always the most prepared technically. He's got a good speed rush, but doesn't set up the ideal situation. And then in the interior, it wasn't much better. It was Kobe Turner and Aaron Donald, and they now have to replace, at the very least, Aaron Donald snaps. We know we can't replace Aaron Donald altogether. Yeah. And they've invested heavily at this position, not through free agency, but through the draft. You go back and you look at the last few draft classes, and you just look at the numbers that they've added to the defensive line. Byron Young, who I've mentioned, Kobe Turner, who I mentioned, Nick Hampton, also O'Shawn Mathis, and Desjuan Johnson, all added last year. A lot of those guys didn't end up playing. That's 5-6 picks out of the 14. You look at Daniil Hardy from the previous year, 2022, Bobby Brown from 2021, and Ernest Brown, no longer on the team, maybe practice squad, I can't recall. Just another name though. But then you look at this year, who they added, obviously Jared Verse in the first round, Braden Fisk in the second round, Brennan Jackson, Tyler Davis. So another
in free agency, yeah, or undrafted free agency.
So obviously they're looking to try to figure out how to find kind of the people that the guys that can be the starters, but also the rotational pieces for the defensive line. You think about the 3 defensive line interior guys and then the 2 on the outside. So, there's which one of these is going to step up? We saw Kobe Turner end the year really strongly. Byron Young start the year really strongly. Can they put it all together and be the starters? But then you got to find guys that can rotate in so that the starters are getting rest when they need to, and they're strategic, and they're planning their pass rush accordingly to what's being presented by the offense. And you can't do that if you've only got 5 starters.
Yeah,
and really 4 if you think about it. 4 of the 5 spots, and then kind of a combination of Jonah Williams and Bobby Brown moving around there. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the defensive line?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not I don't think it's breaking news or surprising comments from McVay that's the ideal scenario, right? Like, yeah, of course you want to be able to have depth and rotation and talent across the board in your reserves as well. Obviously we know the Rams, I think, drafted really well. Extremely excited about Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. I think you slot in, they're still rookies, so it's no guarantee, but I think it's safe to say right now in June that, your starting edge is going to be Byron Young and Jared Verse, and Braden Fisk is going to be your starting one of your D tackles, with the hope of Bobby Brown kind of being anchoring the nose, and then Kobe Turner, obviously the other tackle, on the other side. So I think the talent level is good there. There's a lot of unknown with obviously 2 rookies, but Bobby Brown, if he can live up to the potential that we have yet to see, but definitely is a big body, high ceiling potential. And then obviously we know Kobe Turner and Byron Young had tremendous years. So if Verse and Fisk can even be somewhat productive, then I think they'll be okay there. Now, when you look at the depth and the ideal scenario, you get Michael Hoyt now as a depth piece, which I think is where he fits. I'm not saying he would say this, but I don't think he is an NFL starting edge player. I think he played admirably. He had some games where he played really well. I think he got better week over week, but it wasn't like, I don't think he's like a guy that should be a starting edge player for, any 32 teams. But as a depth piece, I think he's great when he can come in. So now you're able to put him in that depth spot, which I think is great. But outside of him, it's still a lot of unknown. I mean, Brennan Jackson drafted this year, rookie. You mentioned, Nick Hampton, who, we'll see if anything comes from that. Deshaun Johnson, I think, drafted last year in the 7th round. There's some, I think, excitement there, but, we don't really know. Earl Murchison, they obviously liked because they re-signed him as a potential, nose depth, but How much of a drop off will that be, if any? Tyler Davis drafted this year, unknown. So there's depth, but it's all unknown depth. It's not like you have, you're starting 4 guys, and then it's like, okay, cool, we got some vets that are going to come in and spell, which kind of points the next question. And you did an article on this as well. Like, there are still free agents out there, some good free agents out there. Do you think? Well, let me ask you this first. First question would be: do you think the Rams do sign another one before training camp? And then secondly, we'll go into kind of who potentially that could be, because, I just think, I think they're excited about the unit, as we all are, but it's just, you want to at least have some known commodity coming off the bench, which right now they honestly don't really have. Laurel Murchison obviously did play some, but there's not a lot of knownness as you're backdating Resh. So real quick, if you're on radio, we're going to take a quick break. You can listen to the full rest of this episode on LAFBnetwork.com or Rams LAFB on YouTube. So on radio, thanks so much. Talk to you at the bottom of the hour. But I'll toss it to you. So first question, do you think they add another piece out of free agency?
If they come to Skinny T Anderson and ask his advice, I'm going to say absolutely. Let's start talking, getting guys on the phone and seeing what's happening. I think they're probably in a holding pattern. I think they have a high enough opinion of their ability to draft and develop guys, which is something we didn't touch on, the development piece of having Giff Smith and AC Carter kind of heading up the interior line, which is primarily where we got to see that depth growth, and Eric Henderson, as we always mention, no longer here, over at USC now. So I think right now they're in an assessment period, and I think they're going to float that until training camp, until pads come on, until they can kind of see how that kind of shakes out. So that that's where I am with that. If you go check out my article, I tried to do a what I call coach speak deciphered little section in that defensive line article. Because during OTAs, Sean McVay, anybody at the mic, nobody's getting thrown under the bus. Nobody's gonna, so you kind of have to parse and figure out, how the coaches are feeling about everybody. But you got to figure it's a numbers game at this point, and they have invested so much in it that it feels like somebody's got to be able to be that, take that next big leap. But I'm hoping that it's Bobby Brown. Honestly, he's that's it's kind of his last chance, really. So we got to root for that guy.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. So, but no, I agree with you. I think that I think they are I think they're content right now. But I think if the money's right and someone wants to be here, because according to Over the Cap, they have about $8.5 million in cap space left. Obviously, you want to have some for in season in case of injuries, but you get a vet in here on the vet minimum, or for $2 million, you still got $6 million or so to play with during the season. Like, they have some flexibility here where they could actually go get someone. And so one that you wrote about that I think I would just love this, but Calais Campbell is out there, obviously up there in age. There's a nice, well-oiled machine now. What is he, 39 years old, I think, or something like that?
And anytime I call a guy old, I have to remind myself that I just turned 41 myself, but he's old in football years. So
yes.
Yeah, 16-year vet, coming off a 1-year contract with the Atlanta Falcons. Still, he's probably one of those guys that's going to, hang around and wait till training camp is mostly over before he makes any decisions. So, but yeah, I mean, to me, it's a no brainer. You had a guy that's got a ton of experience. And proved to be a really good, defensive lineman on a bad defense last year. He put up pretty good numbers last year for an old guy on a bad defense. He 42 pressures, which he led the team, second with 7 sacks on the Falcons. And he had the 10th best PFF run defense grade among edge rushers. They call him an edge rusher, but he's huge as well. 6'8", 282. So probably the biggest edge rusher out there. So I wouldn't mind, you could bump him in, He was, good in run defense, as I was saying. So this to me is a no brainer if the price is right on him. If he's not asking for too much, just get the old head in there, just teaching these young guys in there. We haven't run down the list again, but rookies, second year, nobody off their rookie contract along the defensive line. So they're expecting a lot from those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, I mean, this is to me, it's 1 year deal for one of these guys. You're not going and breaking the bank. You're not signing some franchise edge rusher or something before training camp or franchise interior guy. You're adding depth, a guy as a veteran, bringing some veteran experience to a very young room. You mentioned the development, right? And we'll see how Gift Smith and AC Turner do, because it is a different, obviously a different coaching, probably. I don't know if I want to say full on scheme, but definitely a different coaching style. I mean, every coach does things a little differently. And when you've had Coach Henney with the Rams as long as he was, go into a new coach and Gift Smith, things are going to change. And so bringing in a vet to help develop. I mean, how many times have we heard the stories of Aaron Donald being a coach within the player on the field? How many times have we heard Andrew Whitworth being a coach within the player on the field, helping younger guys, bringing them along? You bring a guy like Calais Campbell that has 16 years of experience. Like, so what if he only gives you 12 plays a game? Like, it could be invaluable what he gives you throughout the week, just in meeting rooms, just on the field in preparation. And so that alone, I think, would be worth the $2 or $3 million it might cost. So Calais Campbell to me is probably my most coveted, because again, 1 year deal, get you some plays in depth, but obviously what he brings in between the ears. But you look at this list, Skinny, of kind of who's still available. I mean, Emmanuel Ogbah is still out there, 31 years old. Now, maybe he's wanting quite a bit more money, and that's why he's still sitting out there. Yannick Ngakoue still sitting out there, 29 years old. I mean, this dude, Yannick Ngakoue, last contract before this past year, signed a pretty massive deal with the where did he go? From the Jaguars to the Vikings and then to the Bears. He's kind of been all over the place the last few years, but he signed a pretty massive contract his last big free agency period. So there's still some talent there. Carl Lawson, 29 years old. The one that also entices me because you could get him for cheap, Charles Harris, another one, 29 years old, just previously with the Lions, a former first-round pick at the edge position. But Mike Purcell is another one that I'll throw out there. I know I always bring up Broncos, so Rams fans probably hate that, but he's been the Broncos' starting nose tackle for the last 3 seasons. Wow. And he's 33 years old, so a 1 year deal is not like he's not going to make it through a season after just being a starter. Get him for cheap. Then if Bobby Brown waivers, you have a guy that's literally started 16 games the last 3 years, or 17 games, I guess, the last 2 years. But a guy that if Bobby Brown works out great, you have great veteran depth there that you can count on starting in at that nose spot, because he played the nose tackle position in kind of a 3-4 scheme. So I think you'd fit well. So Mark Purcell is another one that I intrigues me that you can get for cheap.
Yeah, that's probably, Calais Campbell is probably my favorite answer. That's probably the best answer, because he's not going to garner a lot of money out there. I wouldn't imagine. So, yeah. So let me shift it to free agents in general. Are there? Let me ask this first. Anything on the offense? Is there anything on the offense that you would add a free agent before the season?
I mean, I wouldn't. I feel like, I'm really happy where the offense at. I feel like they've already spent. I mean, you look at the spending discrepancy between the offense and defense, and it just seems to me, foolish isn't the right word, but a little unsettling is not the right either. But I to spend more on the offense when you have still, I think, unknowns on the defense doesn't seem like the smartest decision. But I mean, if you think you can make it better or give yourself security, then why not? Is there a name jumping out at you that you would want?
The only one that I keep coming back to is David Bakhtiari. Yeah. Now, obviously, the age, a problem. He's played 13 games in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So, not good. But the year before he went out with that injury, he was an all-pro, first team all-pro. So, I mean, there's got to, they're taking a flyer on Tre'Davious White. You could take a flyer on this guy and see if he can beat out Alaric Jackson for that left tackle position. And Alaric Jackson allowed the team's most pressures. Only one sack according to PFF, but he did lead the team in pressures. So, I like Alaric Jackson, but is it a possible upgrade and further that kind of just dominant mauling offensive line that should just push everybody around? I mean, you could talk me into that for the right price.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree because, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like everyone's talking about these huge improvements on the offensive line, rightfully so. I mean, in re-signing Kevin Dotson, bringing over Jonah Jackson, we know how good Havenstein is, and we know how good, our young rookie that we're moving to center is. But there hasn't been a lot of talk about Alaric Jackson, and played good last year. I think played above his weight, as you mentioned, gave it those pressures, but only one sack. But if this is the unit that you're pushing all your chips in, and you're saying we're going all in on the offense, we're going all in on the offensive line in terms of spending power. Do you feel comfortable? I'm not asking you specifically, but do you feel comfortable with Alaric Jackson as your weakest link? Because we've talked about it before. I've written about it before. Like the offensive line is like a chain link fence, or if you think of like a chain link, It's 5 chains. And so it's only as strong as that weakest link. Everyone talks about the football team being that, but in reality, the offensive line is the most contingent of that analogy, because if you have one weak link of that chain, you don't have a very good offensive line because defenses know exactly where to exploit. Guess what? Edge rushers nowadays, in the past, you might be a right edge rusher. That's the only way you rush from is the right side because that's all you can do. Guess what now? Oh, we're just going to move over to the left side because we know that's their weak link. And so every single week, our top edge rusher is coming off the left. And so do the Rams feel good enough about Alaric Jackson being that piece, or is it worth throwing a flyer at a David Bakhtiari, who, when healthy, is a top 5 tackle in the NFL? I mean, he's getting older, but he's only, I don't want to say only, but he's 33. I mean, he's not like he's 40. He's getting older, but he is coming off a lot of injuries, like you mentioned. There's also names out there, DJ Humphries. I wouldn't say he's great, but do you like that better than Alaric Jackson? Dwayne Brown, definitely older, but there's talent there in Dwayne Brown. And so I think there's some names out there that would be worth at least bringing in and exploring. And if Alaric Jackson beats him out in camp, great. You didn't break the bank. Maybe you even waive the vet after camp. Who knows? Or right before camp. But I think definitely if you're doing anything on offense, which I still think if you're gonna sign one guy, I think it should be defense. But if you want to do one on offense, it's got to be a left tackle, because that's the one position that is still like, do we feel bad about it? No. Do we feel terrible about it? No. Do we feel great about it? Also no. So it's like, if you can improve, why not?
And if this Rams team is going to lean into the run game as much as I predict that they are going to, go look at PFF if you guys have the premium subscription. If not, hit me up. I'll send you a screenshot. The left to right differences are stark in terms of yards per carry. Especially to Alaric Jackson's gaps.
Yeah.
So, just throwing that out there. We're all dreaming at this point about actual football. So this is what we got for you right now. I keep looking at these wide receivers that are available, and I'm just going to get myself in trouble for saying these names. But Michael Davis, Hunter Renfrow, Corey Davis, Julio Jones, Robbie Chosen. I won't bring that one up, but Richie James, fast guy. Anyway, so we don't need to talk about those guys at all, but I mean, Julio Jones, he's got to have something left in the tank.
I mean, I'm thinking of Michael Thomas. I mean,
another a guy that can't seem to get healthy,
can't get healthy. But this last healthy year, he broke. I mean, he's the one guy that still has more receptions in the season than Cooper Kupp. The only guy Cooper Kupp didn't pass, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Was that his? I believe. I should probably look that up before someone just executes me in the comments.
Well, fun fact that I learned writing about Calais Campbell. He's 4th most in the history in tackles for loss in NFL history, right behind Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald did that in 10 seasons.
Jeez.
I mean, Calais Campbell's stat is great, but that's just incredible.
Yeah, that is incredible. So yes, Michael Thomas still leads the NFL in regular season receptions with 149. Kupp has 145, and Thomas did that in a 16-game season. So now that was back in 2019, so almost 5 years ago, and he has not really been healthy since. But 31 years old. Again, I'm not for signing a receiver, so no one knows. But it's interesting. That's a name out there that's like, can we squeeze 30 receptions and 6 touchdowns out of you? Is that worth vet minimum?
We'll see what happens mid-season if they're really chugging along like 2021 and the Odell Beckham situation is happening and Michael Thomas is just on the couch.
Because here's the thing, right? And then we'll wrap up. Because I do not see them signing a receiver. No, I mean, I think they're pretty happy. So everyone listening, this is just it's June. Let us talk about stuff. It's June, all right? We're not saying the Rams are doing this, but like, do you feel Michael Thomas, and I know their skill set's very different, but just player for player, would you think Michael Thomas or even a Hunter Renfrow is an upgrade over Tutu Atwell?
Yes, 100%.
So then you do it.
Fair enough.
Then technically, again, I don't think they're doing it, but if you have that internal conversation, obviously Tutu is their guy they drafted 2nd round, but as of now, he's what, wide receiver 5-ish? I mean,
4 or 5.
4 or 5. Yeah. If he reaches what they think he can be, obviously he's that burner. They haven't used him enough in that role, so why wouldn't you go get Hunter Renfrow would be silly because that's literally you have 3 of the same receiver with Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Hunter Renfrow. It'd be the funniest 13 personnel ever with those 3 guys just all running 3 out routes, 2-yard out routes or 1 dig route. But it could be effective. I mean, the dudes get open. Hunter Renfrow had some solid seasons with the Raiders until they changed kind of their offensive scheme last year after Gruden left. So I mean, that's the only thing I'll say. The Rams aren't doing it. But if you literally can look in the mirror and say, is this an upgrade over who we currently have? And I'm not trying to bash on Tutu Atwell, but I think most people would say, if healthy, Michael Thomas for sure, and probably Hunter Renfrow is an upgrade over Tutu Atwell. So if you can get him for the vet minimum, you're only hurting yourself by not doing that.
Yeah, and these guys get hurt. We're not wishing it upon anybody. On a similar note, we do have a article with a poll embedded into it about Tutu Atwell. Make your voices heard. Pro Tutu Atwell or time to move on from Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, it's last year of his rookie deal. So should they re-sign him? And if they sign a Renfrow or Thomas, I think the writing's on the wall. They do not plan to re-sign.
Yeah, only 53 spots on this roster, and there's going to be a rugby player maybe. So
yeah, exactly, a rugby player and a tank punter. So, well, they already have they got their good punter right now, so they don't need to replace that. So, so it'll be interesting. I definitely think they add. So I'll just on the spot. Do they add a free agent for training camp, and what side of the ball is it on?
I think so. I think they'll decide. I think they'll eventually decide that they need something extra along the defensive line, and probably interior. That's what I would guess.
Cool. Yes, I agree. I think they will add. We'll add a free agent, but just because of how they've been now. The draft was different. They followed our Rams skinny model for the draft, I feel like fairly well. Like they went along with at least the first 2 picks. Free agency, not at all. So I feel like because it's free agency, they stick with not doing what we think they should do, and they'll sound like a running back or something, like just something super random. Not a
Dalvin Cook's out there. Cam Akers is a free agent.
Yeah, Brandon Bolden's out there if they want to. Brandon Bolden's a good special team guy they can bring in as a running back. So Blackburn said Boston Scott right now is kind of the leader in the clubhouse for the return guy. Little note on that. But yeah, I think they will add. I for some reason I just think they'll add someone on offense randomly. So not a running back. I was kidding, but some offensive player, which hopefully it's an offensive tackle. We'll take that. Yeah. But my hope would be Calais Campbell or Mike Purcell. Those would be the 2 names I would love to see in Horns come training camp.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. There we go. Anything else to add, Skinny T?
No, I think we're good. We always say we're going to keep it short and, pity you poor listeners, get you guys back to your day and just kind of give it to you fast. We're at 40 minutes. So
yeah,
but we kept the opening tight.
We're tight. Not a lot of weather talk. Yeah. Quickly, I only mentioned the weather once. It was a quick like, oh yeah, it's warm out. How we doing?
You're welcome. You're welcome,
Yeah,
listeners.
high and tight. I did see one comment actually mention a brewery. We asked for brewery recommendations last episode. So any new listeners, we're looking for more LA brewery recommendations that A, we can partner with, B, we can just check out because, you know, who doesn't love an LA brewery? The guy mentioned Art District Brewery, which I love.
Oh,
one of my favorite breweries. You've been there, right?
I haven't been to Art District Brewery, but I
haven't?
love the Art District in general, and there's several down there. I feel like
there's a ton. I mean, Angel City's right there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
But I love Art District Brewery. It's cool. They got like skee ball in there. Got a bunch of tables. They have liquor too, so not just beer. If you want to do some liquor, we're like Angel City is just beer.
Yeah,
a lot of cool spots. My favorite bar, and then we'll end with this. So most people probably have already logged off by now anyway. But my favorite bar, kind of in maybe even just LA in general, it's called The Resident in the Art District. Have you ever been there?
Never been there. No.
Oh, it's awesome. It's like so it's pretty close to Art District Brewery. It's, you know, Art District's pretty small, but it's mostly all outdoor. And the bar is like an old, like Winnebago or old, like camper van converted. They do have a little indoor area, but the prime area of the bar is all outside with just like nice trees. And it's just, you know, it's the perfect LA vibe.
Love that.
Outside, basically going up to a taco truck to order your drinks. It's great.
It's just LA in a bar. I love that.
Yeah. Atlanta, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cool LA bars. So anyway, any other brewery recommendations, let us know. We're all over LA. And so we'd love to meet up with you if you want to hang out. We'd love to get some sponsorships. We'll get some free beer on here that we can hopefully help facilitate around. But either way, let us know. So thank you all for hanging out with us, tuning in. This is the Rams Skinny on the LAFB Network. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Rams LAFB YouTube page. Follow us on all of our socials at LAFB Network. And the website is LAFBnetwork.com. For Ryan Skinny T. Anderson, I'm Ryan Dyward. Stay blessed. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll talk to you all next week.